Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Long time no see. I know it's been a little over 5 months since I have last posted on YouTube, but I am here and back with a big bang with this project that has been a long time coming, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So, if you haven't heard, one of the biggest stories ever created in literature is now being adapted into a feature-length film by Christopher Nolan, and that is The Odyssey. And fun fact, I have been obsessed with The Odyssey for the past year and a half, especially due to Jorge Rivera Herring's epic The Musical. I don't know if you lived under a rock, but this is one of the most popular stories again, and it's gaining a new life with modern day audiences. And I wanted to contribute to that new life and newfound attention in social media, and I wanted to add my voice to the ruckus. So as I'm doing this underpainting for this first panel of my giant triptych, my magnum opus of any art project I've ever done, which we'll talk about much more in detail later, I wanted to give you a brief rundown of the story of the Odyssey and what it is. The 10-year Trojan War had just ended, and Odysseus, captain of his fleet, is on his way back home to Ithaca to return to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. On his way home, he encounters various obstacles that stop him from getting to his ultimate destination of Ithaca. He is stopped by the Cyclops Polyphemus, who is blinded by Odysseus and his crew, and in retaliation, he takes Odysseus' name, once revealed in a moment of pride, and gives it to his father Poseidon, who makes every effort to make Odysseus' journey home as difficult as possible. And this leads to him being swept to the land of the giants and being encountered with sirens and lots of monsters that divert his way, like Scylla, Charybdis. He eventually ends up on Calypso's island, which he stays for about 7 to 10 years, I believe, and he is kind of stuck on this island after the death of his entire fleet and his crew, and it's a very complicated relationship he has with Calypso, and it leads to a very nuanced conversation, but ultimately he is able to find a ride back home through a raft he makes on the island, and he is able to fight off the hundreds of suitors who have waited in his palace to wed his wife Penelope, believing Odysseus to be dead, and it leads to him regaining power in his own home, giving Telemachus a platform to become king, and kind of just a happy ending where he's able to reconnect with his wife and son after the 20 years he's spent separated from them. It's a very powerful, long, and very hero's journey story that basically invented modern literature and modern day games and stuff like that. And I encourage you to read Homer's original version before taking in any new interpretations. Now, onto the artwork itself that is presented in front of you throughout this entire video. So basically, as you can see now, I am working on a triptych, and this is the Odysseus panel. Odysseus is on this panel with his bow pointed down as he looks, which will soon be the 2 panels across to his wife Penelope. I wanted to make sure they had shared eye contact. But this first panel is basically just him in the Trojan era with, as you can see here, you can see the Trojan horse, the horse that got them into the city of Troy to infiltrate, to finally win that war. And I wanted to kind of have this panel be specifically about Odysseus, his character before the journey and before the development of his self-discovery as he journeys back home. So this is basically the before. I wanted to set this whole triptych of as the before, during, and after, and I think I was able to portray that well, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, I will gladly take any feedback you guys have for me. I started this way back in, I believe, June of last year of 2025, and it has been a whole year in the making. And yeah, this is the first panel. So on to the second panel. This panel is the biggest work I have done up to date. It is measured at 48 inches by 48 inches. It was a hefty one, and I wanted it to show all of the obstacles that Odysseus went through on his journey home, with Odysseus in the center of the panel. I know it's not typical, especially in triptychs of old, that a character is like repeated twice in a very big perspective, but I thought it was interesting to kind of continue his story onward, even though he had already been exhibited in the artwork itself. But I don't know, I just thought it would be a different perspective and a different type of understanding of the story. But overall, this was the most fun to paint out of all three paintings. It had so many tiny details in it. I felt like I was never bored with it. From the landscapes to the individual obstacles and clues. And overall, it was the most fun. And yeah. I realized I have not told you guys what this was for. So this project was brought to me through reading it in class and being introduced by Jorge Rivera-Heron's Epic the Musical last summer when I heard the song Suffering for the first time. I don't know if you've heard that, but it got me immediately addicted to the musical. And since then, I knew when I graduated, I would fill out my senior exhibition requirement to graduate with a BFA. And I wanted the theme of my show to be, at least my part of the show, to be the Odyssey, anything classical, anything Greek. I've always loved anything Greek mythology, from Percy Jackson to more modern day interpretations. The Song of Achilles is my favorite book of all time. Don't even get me started on it. But I wanted definitely to portray that, especially knowing that I would have to spend hours on it for my senior show. And I figured that this was the perfect subject matter to do it on, especially having done research for my English minor on the Odyssey. So I thought, yeah, this is what I'll do. So basically, this triptych, along with some other independent paintings and an animation, which you will see a little bit later, is what built up my part of the senior show exhibition for my BFA. And I couldn't have been more proud. Like, this is, I think, like, I struggle because it is my best work to date, and ever since completing this, I've actually had a lot of art block and dealing with moving on from this because it consumed me for almost a full year, and going on from that to, I guess, just nothing, it really took a toll on me. So this artwork, even though it is my best to date, it is also what kind of killed me artistically for at least a couple of months. And yeah, it's a very nuanced situation, but I don't regret anything, because this has been the best work I have ever done. I obviously see some flaws here and there, but I don't know how to go from here. But I definitely want to try, at least this year, and if not with painting, definitely with animation. Again, I'll talk about that a bit more later, but yeah. But anyways, this was all for my senior exhibition, which you will see a little bit of a clip in the end, but I wanted to really prove to not just myself, but to my peers and my teachers that I am capable of doing so much more than what I was. I feel like my teachers were great, but I felt a little unaccomplished in my classes, knowing that I could do so much more than just an assignment. You know, if I felt like if I really dedicated myself to something, I could complete something that was out of this world. And I think this opportunity of my BFA exhibition, where we could do whatever we wanted to showcase our skills, I thought this was the best opportunity to show what I could do, how far I could push myself. And I think I pushed myself to a limit that I didn't think I could go, but it also allowed me to express myself and my love for classic literature, while also unfortunately tiring me out from art for a little bit. But I think it was a little bit worth it, in my opinion. I got a lot of feedback, and it was nice to really show what I was capable of when not being restrained. So yeah. On to the final and last piece in the triptych, and this is the Penelope panel. This panel was my favorite as it pertained to portraiture. I definitely learned a lot about my style and how I make portraits and how I detail faces, and definitely this portrait specifically and this panel specifically allowed me to kind of go in a more experimental route with how I stylize people's faces, especially as it pertains to me making these historical figures in a reflection of myself. And by that, I mean I made them more darker skin tone, brown matching my own, because that's how I want to represent them, and that's how I think it'd be more impactful, at least for me as an audience member. I feel like we don't see ourselves in classical artwork, and I felt like this was an opportunity to showcase that. But back onto topic, I think this specific panel allowed me to really experiment with stylization and understanding what type of art I make. I know that sounds so silly and it doesn't make sense, but it really put in perspective how I render faces and how I render the body, and I definitely have, at least with women specifically, I definitely was able to find a way to render and style a portrait that is undeniably Ash artisan, it's hard to explain that, but yeah. I definitely took inspiration from other Penelope portraits of the time. I wanted to give her a pained expression, because she was dealing with so much at the palace, being pursued by so many suitors, when really she wanted to just be with Odysseus. And I think she can be arguably used as one of the most prominent feminist figures in classical literature, remaining loyal and not, giving herself up in a sense where she was almost forced to, but she remained relentless. And I feel like she's one of the strongest women in literature that you can read to this date. And that's just my opinion, but I don't know. I feel like so much could be said about Penelope as a character, how strong she is and yet undeniably feminine. I don't know. I just think she's very underscored and there should be more appreciation for her. But overall, this was one of my favorite panels to make, but also one of the most stressful because it was near the end and I wanted to finish the triptych as soon as possible. And this was the home stretch, so I did get a little lazy and I feel like I should have done a little bit better with that, but overall it was good. Now onto the DIY of it all. These were panels that I got from Lowe's, so they were definitely not canvases and they weren't like professional wood panels, but I went ahead and I bought off Amazon these little wood planks that I attached with wood glue to add to make them homemade wood panels. I know it's super cheap and definitely not professional, but they needed to hang up somehow and this was my solution. Maybe not the most smart in the long term if I want to present these in a very professional setting, but for my senior show, since it was cutting down time and I needed something to be able to hang them up with, this was the best solution I came up with. And it was a headache to deal with, but it inevitably was what saved me from having to restart all over on actual wood panels, and I would definitely recommend this if you're trying to do that. So yeah. I only had about 10 weeks to finish these, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it definitely is what made me cut some corners a little bit. Next, I did these small paintings on the corners of every panel, which had different locations where the Odyssey had taken place. These were spaces that I couldn't necessarily fit on the panels themselves, so I wanted to squeeze them in the corner to add some continuity to the paintings and make it more cohesive in the overall perspective. So, yeah. On to the next thing. So I knew I wanted to incorporate animation at one point in my show because I had recently been getting into it, and so I used my brother as a model to rotoscope off of because I am definitely not an animator, but I digitally painted all of the backgrounds for this animation. As I stated before, I love the Song of Achilles, I love the Iliad, I love Achilles and Patroclus's relationship, whether you think they're best friends or lovers. I think they have such a strong bond, and I wanted to just have like a little moment when they're with Chiron, and I wanted to create a small animation of their brief training montage when they're with him to really accentuate a time where they both were just at ease and both were just very close, in my opinion. And so my brother graciously became my model for both Patroclus and Achilles, and I made these small little animations that showed just small moments that was very intimate for them. And yeah, not as important as the triptych, but definitely still a key component to my show. Overall, the show went off without a hitch. I had tons of compliments on my work. It was the most significant I have felt ever making any type of art, and I was so proud of myself for what I was able to accomplish. I definitely have a lot more thoughts on the Odyssey as a literature form, Jorge's interpretation and Christopher Nolan's interpretation, and I have a lot more footage of everything that I've made in the show. So if you're interested, leave a comment down below and I can definitely edit and create a long form video explaining everything else and more in depth into my thought process. But till then, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.